So, this is lecture 25 of basic calculus 1. Till now, we are concentrating on very two important applications of the notion of limiting concept. Limiting concept is of course the most fundamental thing to calculus. Using this, we have discussed continuity and then differentiation of functions. Today, we will be starting the third important aspect, which also bases on the limiting notion. It is called the integration. So, as it is told that integration is the inverse process or reverse process of differentiation. So, this is the sense. Suppose f of t is a function defined on the interval a to b, closed interval a b. If we can write f of x equal to derivative of some other function, say capital of f x, then what could be this new function or capital F of x? So, this is how it is called the reverse process of differentiation. In differentiation, capital F is given, you differentiate and obtain something as small f x. Here we are given with small f x and we ask what should be capital F x such that differentiation of f prime x will be giving us small f of x. That is the idea. So, x is a point, any point in closed interval a b, there f prime x, f of x should be defined, capital F of x, and its differentiation or derivative at that x should be equal to the functional value of small f of x. Okay. So, a basic thing about this is just look at the picture. Suppose f of x is given, let us say it is t axis, f of t, y equal to f of t, and we choose any point x here. We want to find out capital F of x. This height is of course f of x, small f of x. Now, what we guess, suppose I consider capital F of x as the area under the graph y equal to f of t, the t axis and the line t equal to a, this one, and the line t equal to x. So, that means the area which is blue here. So, suppose that is equal to f of x, whatever its value is, that is equal to f of x. Then f of x plus h will be equal to that plus this pink area, that is capital F of x plus h. Okay. So, now if you take f of x plus h minus f of x, that will give this pink area. Okay. So, now think of this area divided by this h. So, that will give some average value of the heights, fine. Some way it is an average value of the heights, and when this h becomes smaller and smaller, we may say that we reach the height f of x. That is the intuitive notion behind getting this function capital F of x. So, we guess that capital F of x should be the area under the graph of y equal to f of t and the lines t equal to a and t equal to x, which is written blue here, that area should be capital F of x, because that matches with our intuition. If you do f of x plus h minus f x divided by h, that is approximately equal to the height, which is the value f of x. But now a new question arises, how to find the area of this region f of x. So, suppose we say that there is some area, then first of all f must be a bounded function. If it is unbounded, area becomes infinite, right, that will not help us, it is not a real number. So, we cannot write f of x is that infinity. So, we assume that small f is a bounded function. For those function only, we will try to find out capital F of x. In fact, we will later restrict this further, because in applications we get usually that kind of functions, and that will be sufficient for our purpose. Okay. So, suppose f from closed interval a b to r is a bounded function. Now, what we do, it is something like this. It is at A and this is at x, that is our f of x. Problem is how to approximate this area under the curve y equal to f of t and these two lines. How do we approximate this area? Say instead of x we can take b also, does not matter if that fixes the idea. So, you get f of b. How do we approximate this area if we cannot find it exactly? So, what do we guess? If I take the rectangle, this rectangle A to B, that is also an approximation of this area, but a better approximation will obtain if I divide that into two sub intervals and now take two areas. One is this area and another is this area, right. It is some C. So, C to B one rectangle I get and A to C another rectangle I get. So, I may think of approximating the area under the curve with sum of these two. As it looks intuitively, if we go on subdividing this interval A to B with smaller and smaller sub intervals, then on each of the sub intervals we compute that rectangle, add them, that will be a better approximation when these sub intervals are smaller and smaller. That is the idea. So, to capture this notion of sub intervals, we have to choose some points here. Those points consist of the set of points is called a partition. So, we are defining it formally, we should try looking from the partition itself. So, a set P which is x0, x1, x2 up to xn is called a partition of the closed interval a b, if and only if a equal to x0, b equal to xn and x1 to xn minus 1 are chosen in between those with this ordering. So, that means you have a which is x0, then x1, then x2 and so on, xn is b. So, after this partition we have to do something, we want them to be smaller and smaller, right, and then take a limiting process to get this area. That is our idea. Okay. So, what we do, since we want them to be smaller and smaller and in fact, that should be close to 0, we define the norm of the partition which is maximum of the lengths of those sub intervals. If that maximum goes to 0, then everything also will go to 0, all these sub interval lengths. That is why you are defining that. So, let us call this as a norm of the partition P, which is really maximum of xi minus xi minus 1. Okay. So, then what happens? We see that this partition divides the interval a b into n number of sub intervals. Fine. So, now when you define the area under that, but within this sub interval xi minus 1 to xi, where from this rectangle will come? You may choose xi times this, f of xi times xi minus 1, or you may choose xi minus 1 into f of xi minus 1. So, in general what we do? We will choose another point Ci. So, about that point Ci, we choose f of Ci and then construct our rectangle here. Okay. So, that rectangle, by choosing this Ci in between xi minus 1 and xi, you will say that it somehow approximates the area under that curve f of t and limited to this xi minus 1 to xi sub interval. That is why we are going to choose a point Ci from each of the sub intervals. So, choose a point Ci. Now, the set of all these Ci's, we will give a name to it, we will call it a choice set. It is non-standard, but it will be very helpful to fix the notion. So, let us call this as a choice set. So, choice set consists of points from each of the intervals, that is Ci should be in between xi minus 1 to xi. Then we form the sum, that is sum of all those rectangles. So, the rectangle in the interval xi to xi minus 1 to xi is f of Ci, which is this height. At Ci you have f of Ci and then the length of xi minus 1 to xi, this length. So, that is the area of the rectangle. Then you take the sum of all these things. So, that we may think of as an approximation to the area under the curve. So, let us give a notation, call it SFPC. This is equal to summation I from 1 to n f of Ci into xi minus 1. This quantity is called the Riemann sum for the partition P and the choice set C. So, it will depend on the function f that is there, and it will depend on the particular partition, particular points, breakpoints which make the subintervals, and then also the choice points. So, this is really sum of the smaller areas, smaller rectangles. So, that is called the Riemann sum. So, our idea is this is an approximation to the area, and this will be equal to the area when each of these lengths xi minus 1 goes to 0. So, in that case our norm P will go to 0, it is the maximum, and when norm P goes to 0, each of these lengths also will go to 0, and that is exactly our definition of the area. So, what we do? We consider the same thing again. Let us look at the picture to fix the idea. You have the interval a to b. Now, you have chosen some subintervals by taking these points, the partition. Then, inside each of the subintervals, you have chosen some point Ci's, and then found out the area of the rectangle with a height f of Ci and width xi minus 1. Then take the sum of all those rectangles. You think of that sum as an approximation to the curve and the x axis, approximation to the region bounded by that curve, the x axis, and the lines x equal to a and x equal to b. So, it might happen like this, because it need not be always lying above the x axis, it can be below x axis. So, when you take it is region bounded by, it might give rise to two different regions, and their sum of course we are taking. So, now what is the area between area of that region which is bounded by the curve and the x axis and these two lines? That will be the limit of this Riemann sum SFPC when norm P goes to 0, provided it exists. So, there can be some curves where area does not exist below it. So, we are assuming that possibility here. So, that means in that case whenever it exists, we should give a name. We said that the function is Riemann integrable or just integrable if the limit of this Riemann sum exists when norm P goes to 0. So, when norm P goes to 0, that means each of these length of these subintervals, that is xi minus 1, will become smaller and smaller, they will approach to 0, right. So, it assumes that whatever choice point you choose in between that Ci, in between xi minus 1 and xi, the limit should exist. For each choice point you will get an approximation, but whatever choice points you choose, when the norm of the partition goes to 0, this limit must exist. So, that is the condition of Riemann integrability. If that limit exists, we say that the function is Riemann integrable, and that limit we will identify as the area, what we wanted to express. So, that is exactly our definition. So, what we say? We say that the limit of SFPS exists for norm P goes to 0, then that will be the area. But what is the meaning of this exists when norm P goes to 0? As earlier again, like your limiting process. So, what does it say? It says that this limit exists means it is a real number. So, this limit exists means the absolute value of the difference of this Riemann sum from L can be made as small as possible by choosing our partition P, where with the condition that norm P goes to 0. So, in abstract we will be defining this way, that there exists one L which will be the limit of that Riemann sum, corresponding to each epsilon greater than 0, there exists delta greater than 0, such that whenever norm P goes to 0, that is norm P less than delta, we should see that the difference between these two quantities is less than epsilon. It is just like your limit definition. So, if this condition is satisfied, we would say that the function f is integrable, and of course, its integral will be that L, right. So, this is comma. So, the limit L of this is called the, we will give a name to that L, we will call that as the definite integral or Riemann integral of f of x, and we will denote that limit as integral a to b f x dx. So, that defines our integral. So, integral is from a to b f of x dx, this is our notation for the integral, definite integral, equal to limit of the Riemann sum S f p c when norm p goes to 0, which is same thing as telling summation I from 1 to n f of c I x I minus 1, this as limit when norm p goes to 0, and that limit is equal to the integral. So, this will be our definition of the integral, which is actually the area under the curve y equal to f of x, the lines x equal to a, x equal to b, and the x axis. Alright. This in fact is the signed area, but we will come to it. So, once f of x is integrable over a b, this integral is taken as the signed area of the region. Why signed? You can see from the previous picture, f of x is negative here, right, up to this point. So, all these areas will give you not exactly areas in our geometric sense, they will have negative sign. Suppose this length is 2 and this height is 3, then you get minus 6, because this height is f of c I equal to minus 3. So, you get minus 6, it is really signed area, it is not exactly the area, right. So, we have defined really the signed area, okay, signed area of the region between the graph f x, the x axis, and the line x equal to a and the line x equal to b. If you want to get the correct or exact area, you have to really take integral a to b mod of f x, fine, that will give us the geometric area. So, that is what it is, actual area is equal to integral a to b mod f x dx. So, that as if in that negatives will become positive now for giving us the actual area. Okay, so, once this definite integral is defined, we should see how it is applied, and then slowly we will come to some other conditions which will imply that the integral exists. So, it is easy to see what should be the condition, right. You see the limit of the Riemann sum exists for all possible choice of C, that is what our constant is, okay. Whatever partition you choose, once norm of the partition goes to 0, whatever choice of point C you choose, choice set, it should give us a correct limit, okay. Now, our f of x was assumed to be bounded, therefore, in each of the sub intervals, it is again bounded f of x. So, it has a maximum, it has a minimum. Now, whatever area you choose in this sub interval x I minus 1 to x I times f at c I, that will be in between the maximum of f of c I times x I minus 1 and minimum of f of c I times x I minus 1, right. So, that means let us write m I equal to maximum of f x, where x varies from x I minus 1 to x I. Similarly, write m I to be the minimum, small m I. Then what we see, this small m I less than or equal to f of c I less than or equal to capital M I. Therefore, the Riemann sum S f p c, which is instead of m I or small m I, it is f of c I, and all the other sums are same, that should be in between these two sums, okay. So, notice that if it is minimum, then it is also achieved somewhere. So, that means suppose it is achieved at some y I or t I, then you can choose that c I to be equal to t I. So, that this minimum is achieved. So, this one is also achieved and this one is also achieved. among these choice points. By choosing choice points suitably, we can get these two also, right. And our constant is that you have the limit exists, fine. So, this limit also exists left side, and the right side also this limit exists, because they are particular CIs according to our definition, and they are bounded. Our SFPC is bounded by these two sums. So, let us give a name. We will call this left side as the lower sum and the right side as the upper sum. So, any sum you take, it lies between any Riemann sum you take, that lies between the lower sum and the upper sum. And in particular, you can choose CIs to make it equal to the lower sum. You can choose possibly different CIs to make it equal to the upper sum, that is also there. Okay. So, it may look something like this. Suppose inside the interval xi to xi minus 1, if the curve is going like this, your xi is a point where this f of Ci is maximum, right, in this picture. When you come to the other sides, for example, here it is maximum at this place, not at this place. So, if Ci is chosen between these two somewhere, its maximum will be left one. So, left or right we do not know, but there is something where it is maximum. Here you see on the other side, other picture, Ci is taken to be minimum here. So, these are the rectangles, rectangular areas you get while you compute the minimum. So, this one gives summation of mi into xi minus 1. This gives summation of capital Mi xi minus 1. These are also particular values for a particular choice of Ci's. Now, when fx is integrable, this lower sum and upper sum should exist also, right, because for every choice of Ci it should happen. So, in particular for this choice, and both of them must be equal to integral ab f of x dx. That is the definition of area or the integrability condition. So, now when both the limits exist and are equal, due to our inequality, that summation of that Riemann sum lies between these two particular sum of areas, then the Riemann sum in the limit must exist, and that should be equal to this integral a to b f of x dx, which is L now, fine. So, that would say that f x is integrable if and only if this integral exists, if and only if limit of f of Ci xi into xi minus 1 equal to L, if and only if both the lower sum and upper sums give the same limit, and that is same thing as telling mi minus mi, maximum of f of Ci, minimum of f of Ci. So, if you compute this summation, that should be equal to 0, right. So, without getting your L, what is exactly the value of the integral, we may say that this one is the condition of integrability, that limit norm p goes to 0, summation of capital Mi minus small mi times xi minus 1, that in the limit should be equal to 0. That gives the condition of integrability. Sometimes if we are not able to compute the integral correctly, we can at least show by using this method that the function is integrable.